Spencer, we saw you in action, as I said, at the top of the hour up in Manchester. We also saw Joe Joyce, the juggernaut, dispose eventually in the 11th hour. The 11th round, 11th hour as well, of Joseph Parker.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how much of a heavyweight statement did Joyce put down on Saturday night, do you think, Spence?
Huge. It was a coming-of-age fight for Joe Joyce. Although he is 37 years of age, he turned pro late. He was 31 when he turned professional. He's been moving at quite a good rate, but this was the real acid test for him to see if he could really compete at that elite level. You know, Joseph Parker has been there, only lost twice to Anthony Joshua on points, and Dillian White, where he picked himself off the floor in the second round. The 9th round showed that he's got a lot of character, and even put it on Dillian and nearly stopped him, was probably 10 seconds away from stopping Dillian. So he comes from good stock, Parker. And he's only 30 years of age. And the way Joyce went about it, I mean, I don't know what you guys thought, but just looking at him, everything he'd done, his boxing IQ was actually good, because, you know, when he boxes a lower opponent, a lesser opponent, you know, he gets a little bit clumsy, he gets hit with silly shots like we saw against Christian Hammer the last time he boxed. But in this fight, technically he had it spot on. He'd done it, and he just slowly and systematically broke Parker down, stole his soul, stole his heart, and the knockout was incredible. Unless he gets knocked out, Joe Joyce, unless he git's knocked out, Joyce, I can't see him getting beat, because he's just a wrecking ball. He's a machine. He just keeps coming. I mean, and he's just a physical specimen, man. He's so big and so strong.
Parker tried to fight fire with fire, didn't he?
Yeah.
He went up in there. He went up a stone in weight, or best part of it. He went in there to knock Joe Joyce out. I'm not entirely sure Usyk would go in there to knock Joe Joyce out.
No,
he might go in there to buzz around and beat him over 12 rounds and keep out of range, make angles, have
But I think it's the way he controls the space, Simon. Like Parker, who's like, I thought Parker would have the experience to outbox Joyce in this one. Parker was gassed. He was gone. The gasket had gone after 2 rounds because of the way that Joyce was controlling the space.
I thought the same. I thought that he had gas, but he kept on coming back with a second wind, and he kept on landing. He landed some heavy blows on Joe Joyce. Now, what I would say about Parker, in comparison to, say, someone like Deontay Wilder, Parker is an infinitely better fighter than Deontay Wilder, but Deontay Wilder has a punch that can detonate on someone, and I wonder if someone like Joe Joyce could withstand that sort of power, because Daniel Dubois hit him, and there was a perception that Daniel Dubois had dynamite in his hands and didn't do much to him.
Yeah,
someone somewhere is going to do something to him, but at this moment in time,
it's hard to see.
It is like watching Colossus out of the X-Men.
I mean, we were literally underneath the action. Spencer, I was sitting with Simon, and Parker, do you remember, Simon gave him this almighty slap across the chops, and Joe Joyce literally just gave it.
Yeah, it was
carried on.
It was like a Rocky moment from Joe Parker, really, because like Simon said, he was coming back just when you thought Parker was gone. He was finding something from somewhere. He was showing the heart of a lion, really, like hanging in there the way that he did, because you always sensed that Joyce was going to take him out at some point, and the finish was spectacular. But like you say, the shots just sort of bounce off him. It's just like it's something like. It's indescribable, really.
But there was a point when people looked at George Foreman and said, "This is no one can do anything with him. He's so big, he's so strong, no one can withstand him." And Muhammad Ali went in there and did him up like a kipper. So someone will have a antidote to what Joe Joyce brings. But in the fight against Joseph Parker, we all thought that Joe Joyce would win this fight. I think most people thought that.
I actually went for Parker.
Did you go for Parker? Okay, then everyone.
But then I always get a lot of it wrong anyway.
Most people admit that live.
Most people that I spoke to in and around the boxing community thought that Joe Joyce would win it, and that Parker would start fast, win the first 5 or 6 rounds, and as the fight went on, Joe Joyce would wear him down, and so it proved.
Yeah.
What you saw was a remarkably robust performance from Joseph Parker. Parker gave more than I thought he would give.
He definitely did.
He gave more. Because at one point when he was bloody nosed, he looked distressed, and then all of a sudden he got his composure back. His face looked less full of concern and full of distress, and he looked like he was back in a fight again.
Yeah.
But he had a real. The reason why that fight was so good is because Joseph Parker was such a massive participant in that fight.
Huge.
So what now for Joe Joyce? I spoke to him afterwards, Spencer, and he was like, Usyk. Yeah, fancy Usyk. Or maybe Fury, or maybe didn't know. Usyk, Fury, Joshua, or Wilder. Who's out there?
He wants any one of those. You know, he was very up front. Sorry about that. You know, he's 37 years of age. He has been a professional for 6 years now, so he's had that time for that development. I don't think he's going to get any better, Joe Joyce. You know, technically he's not going to improve. I think he is where he is now. Yeah. You know, like I say, he is like a wrecking ball. He's like a machine. Just the tempo that the pace that he puts in is incredible. So any one of those for him now. You know, he wants the big guys. Just won the WBO interim world title, so that does put him in line to fight Usyk. Yeah. Depending on what happens with Fury, whether this fight with Joshua goes on, whether he fights in December. Well, there's a lot of moving parts in the heavyweight division.
Won't he fight for a vacant belt? Because eventually, if Usyk and Joshua fight, Usyk and Fury fight, let's put Joshua to one side for the time being, right? If it's undisputed, the belts will be scattered.
And if the belts get scattered,
he'll get a shot.
If you're an interim champion, you get elevated to WBO straight away. You haven't even got to fight for it. You become a champion.
So he'll become a champion on that basis and then fight as a world champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is such a lovely guy. You don't in any way feel that Joe Joyce shouldn't be where he has now found himself. He thoroughly deserves to be in the limelight after everything he's done.
100%. Great guy, and he's a grafter as well. And he's just like, he is. He's good to be around. It's good fun to be around.
He'll start getting paid now. The tragedy for Joe, and the only tragedy for Joe, is that he's not, because of his the way that he conducts himself in front of the cameras, which is he's not a self-promotionalist. He's not Tyson Fury. He doesn't have that rah rah rah. Does he have that the boom? So all his money is going to be inside the ring.
Sure.
Yeah.